Hello everybody and welcome to the first ever Sketchist animation tutorial. Today we'll be learning how to draw heads and faces, in this tutorial we'll be using Adobe Flash, which is it's a program that I use for animation. If you want to use pencil and paper, that's absolutely fine, but just know that these tutorials are designed for Flash and animation, so they'll be simple, and they'll be using this program. Also, keep in mind that I am not a professional. I do not consider myself to be a professional, and this tutorial is free, so you're welcome and use it to your desire. So I guess we'll go ahead and get started here. So as you can see, we'll be drawing heads. We'll do male and female. We'll do quite a few just so you guys can get the hang of it. We'll learn the basics, and of course, you can learn to draw like me, but this is art, so be original, use your own style. I'll use my own style. I don't expect you to copy mine. In fact, I'd prefer that you don't, because that's just how it goes. But here we go. So let me open up a new scene and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay. So with drawing heads, and basically any part of the human body, what you want to do is you want to learn how to draw circles, because I don't know, we're as humans very curved and rounded, and I don't know what a better word for it is, but the best thing you can do to start out if you're just beginning is get your circles down. I mean, no one can draw a perfect circle, but just enough so you can make rounded edges and stuff. You don't want to be using boxes or anything like that. But so start with a circle, and this is basically 2/3 of the head. I usually like to put a line right through my circle, and then what I do then is you'll add a jaw and a chin right underneath it. So you can see it's kind of split into thirds. This head would probably fit for a male model, just because of the wide jaw, large chin. The eyes are higher up on the head, and I don't know if that's actually anatomically correct, but I guess for cartoons, masculinity and femininity are a little more exaggerated. So I always start with the eyes once I have the basic head structure there. I'll start with the eyebrows. This line right here, this is right where the eyes will be. I like to put the eyebrows up here first, just to kind of get the positioning right. And then here, let me zoom in for you guys, and we'll get the eyes going right in here. Eyes come in all sorts of shape and sizes, just like anything else on the human body. And right now it's pretty rough, but once we finish this rough layer, we'll go over it with a darker color. And I guess I didn't mention before, you want to start this out with very light colors. You can either use like a lighter color pencil, or you can just draw lightly, or if you're in Flash, pick a light color. I guess for animation I usually use orange. I don't know why, but right now I'm using blue. So once you got the eyes down, as far as symmetry on a face goes, in between the eyes, basically what you want to do is you want to be able to fit. So see the length of this eye, you want to be able to fit that right in between. So basically it'd be like having 3 eyes. That's the kind of distance you want to have between your 2 eyes. Of course, this is animation, and if you wanted to have some freaky looking thing, you could have eyes way out, and that kind of gives it its own look. But anyway, once you got the eyes down, then you kind of want to go down to the nose. See, here's kind of where the bottom of the circle is. That's usually where I put the bottom of my nose, and I'll kind of put like a little caret right there just to indicate where it is. And then mouths, it's kind of hard where you put it. I mean, normally what I like to do is put them right where the jawline is, but of course here that looks a little strange. It's got a really long distance between the nose and the mouth. Of course he could be looking up, in which case the jaw would be down and his mouth would be up. And you know, you just kind of got to gauge it. Just you'll know when it looks right. You know, that's just part of the learning process. Sometimes they'll look kind of funny and you'll have to change them up. But for the most part, if the head is looking straight at you, this jawline will meet up with this mouth. That's just how I draw mine. So we've got our mouth, our nose, our eyes. I also like to add kind of the cheek lines, and I'll add the chin. And the more lines you add, the older your character will look. So if I wanted to add, like, I should probably give him nostrils. And I also like to add little lines to indicate kind of where his nose is. You can make it kind of a bumpy nose, or you can make it nice and thin. Or you don't even have to show it at all. You can just have that little tip down there and it kind of creates itself. And shading comes into play too. We'll go into that later. But here we have a pretty basic face structure. Pretty default and generic face. Oh, probably should add ears too. Ears, I usually have them going anywhere between the nose and the mouth up to the eyebrows. I think realistically you want to go down to the mouth, but it's really up to you. Ears are kind of weird that way. They come in pretty variable sizes. Once you got the ears down, you can add the hairline. This is just to depict where the hair will be growing. It doesn't have to stay this short. You know, you can add hair wherever. You know, the more hair you add, usually the younger he'll look. If you're going for a military style, you could just leave it like this. You know, it's got a shaved head. So like I was saying, if you want your character to look more aged, what you want to do is you'll add all these facial lines. You can add wrinkles onto his eyes, add bags under his eyes, little creases right here. Also these creases here, if these really help in adding emotion to your character. If you want your character to look angry, these will be well defined and you'll probably have a crease going across. Really one of the best ways to learn it. This might sound silly, but I mean, just experiment with your own face. Look in the mirror and just kind of see how lines form when you make different faces. It really helps to just to understand how emotion affects the look of a face. But we'll go ahead and get rid of all these lines here and return to our default face. I think that's good. So, you know, we've got our head here, and we'll go ahead and add some hair. We'll make him a young guy. And hair is another one of those things where it can just be anything, whatever you want. You know, different volumes and stuff. You can also make his head look a little more, I mean, if you don't have hair, sometimes they can look a little flat-headed, which I guess is normal, but whatever, it's your choice. Okay, so I think we're probably ready to start adding bolder lines. So I'll add a new layer. We'll just use black for now, and I'll zoom in just so I can get a better look at it. And for male models, one thing to note is a lot of the times the eyebrows will come pretty close to the eye. They'll be right there above them if they're not actually touching the eye. Females are a lot different. They've got thinner eyebrows and they'll be far up on the forehead. But again, there's not really any written rules about human faces because they're all different. No two are alike. So sometimes with rough drafts, the lines can get a little too rough, and it can be hard to follow. So you want to stay pretty accurate. I mean, you don't have to go slow and draw real slow, but you definitely want to make sure that your lines are easy to see. Let's see. And again, you don't have to put lines everywhere. I mean, it's just kind of for the structure of the face. When animating, you're definitely going to want to stay simple, because you'll be drawing this, you know, 1,000 times over for just one character. So keep it simple if this is for animation. If it's for art, then you're definitely going to want to stay more detailed. This is probably not the best tutorial if you're trying to draw extremely detailed portraits. But you know, it's good to know the basics. So we'll bring the jaw down here. It comes up. And of course, this is a very I don't know, generic manly face, I guess. Not all heads should look like this, because this is not how most people are shaped. Go ahead and give the hair some good texture. You don't want it to look smooth necessarily. You gotta know it's hair. Add some sideburns. Really, that's pretty much it. I don't know, I mean, you can always go further, but let's just see how it looks without the rough draft. I don't know, I guess that looks alright. I would probably change that up a bit. His jaw's pretty wide, but I don't know, it's pretty good. I guess we should probably give him some pupils. Pupils are hard. You gotta figure out how to line him up perfectly, otherwise he'll look cross-eyed. And you don't want them to be too little necessarily. One thing pupils are good at is depicting the emotion of a character. Let's see. Yeah, that's not too bad. It's not great, but it works. Of course, you can move everything around. These should probably go in a little more. Yeah, that looks a little better. Yeah, that's pretty much the basics of it. Give him pupils. So now if I wanted to make him like an evil guy, we'd give him some pretty small pupils. Let me just show you. I mean, it just looks creepy, and he's not necessarily evil, just, I don't know, a weird look to give a character. Eyes are very important for the character. You know, they give a lot of emotion. So there's one face down. Well, we'll try another one. We'll do a female now. In fact, we'll let's do a profile. So for those of you who don't know what a profile is, it's basically just a side view of the face. And females, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not very good at them. So just bear with me if it turns out awful. Okay. So I didn't do that for the other guy. Females will typically have smaller necks. Not that you'll necessarily notice because of the hair, but that does help them look a little more feminine in case her hair's tied up or whatever. Men will typically have pretty strong necks. Okay, so figure out where our eyes are. And again, back to the eyebrows, you want to keep them very thin and pretty high up. And you want to accentuate anything that makes her feminine. That's including eyelashes, lips, nose. You just accentuate everything so that people aren't confused about the gender of your character. But pretty much the main thing that will be able to decide whether your character is a male or female is the hair. That's a pretty good indicator. And for females, you'll want less rigid features than a male's. Give him a nice defined jaw. This girl's chin might be a little too low. Give her a nice defined cheekbone. And then lips, you can make them jet out like that. You don't have to. I don't know, sometimes I like to, sometimes it looks a little strange. Give him a mouth. So even now, you can kind of tell that she's a female, mostly by the eyes, and I guess the lips a little bit. Of course, a guy's lips will probably look the same, but it's mostly the eyes for now because she doesn't have any hair. Give her some ears. Ears will probably end up being covered by hair, but let's just see what happens when we add the hair. Okay. So when we do the final outline of her, we probably won't even draw the ear in there just because it's covered by hair. Let's see. And that's pretty good right there. Let's go ahead and do an outline of it. You want to be sure to make sure that those eyelashes are nice and thick, because that's one way to accentuate a female's characteristics. For eyebrows, typically I like to, it's kind of thick up at the front, but then it kind of fades out and gets thinner. And when it's a profile, I like to add this little, it's the eyelid. Basically what's happening here is there's the eyeball back there, and the eyelid kind of rounds over the eyeball, but it goes up to the eyebrow. So just in case you're wondering what that's all about. And then if you want, you can add a cheekbone right there. You don't have to. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. And for nostrils, they do usually come all the way out to the nose. And if you want, you can add the little nostril right there. You don't have to. For females, I usually prefer not to have it. It just kind of, I don't know, it's not necessarily needed, but I don't know, we'll keep it for now. It looks fine. down the lips. Give her a nice rounded chin. Good strong jaw. Let's just see what that looks like so far. So even without the hair, that looks pretty feminine, which is good. It's a good sign. Although I'm not gonna lie, her head's kind of long. I guess that's fine. It doesn't really change anything. Again, there are no rules for faces. It's everyone's different. Okay, so now we'll do the hair. For women's hair, you can usually exaggerate it pretty nicely and won't really cause any big effect. The more you exaggerate it, the more easy it is to tell if it's a girl. But not always necessary. So her hair's kind of going over her ear, so we won't even worry about that. Sometimes it's hard to decide what kind of hair you want, you know, whether it's curly or straight or wavy. Curls are usually a lot harder to animate. I mean, hair in general is pretty difficult to animate, for being honest. It just takes a lot of practice. All of this takes tons of practice. You just gotta keep drawing. I mean, I've drawn tens of thousands of human figures just to learn how to do this. So that right there is looking pretty decent. Now if I'm animating, I'll have to do that, you know, 1,000 times over just for one character. So keep that in mind. Keep stuff simple if you're animating. Okay, so another thing for girls, to accentuate that they are feminine, is makeup, which I'm definitely not an expert on, but I know that lips are pink and they put their little eyeshadow stuff on. So if you're in Flash, go to paint inside, and that'll keep you from painting over the black lines. It makes it easier to color. And if it's all closed off, so you know, if I've got a circle that's completely closed off and you're coloring inside it, it won't go outside the circle, which is nice. Okay, so for lips, you know, we've got light shining down like this. This right here is going to be in the shadow. So typically the upper lip will be darker. If it's coming from the bottom, then it'll be reversed. But typically, sun comes from up above, and the lips will be darker on the upper lip. Dang, okay, hang on. I mean, we can make that a little darker probably if she's wearing lipstick. For the bottom lip, usually I just go right out to that tip where there's kind of a little peak right here, and that's where I'll make it end, and that looks pretty good right there. Eyeshadow, I gotta be honest, I know very little about eyeshadow. I guess it just depends on the girl, but I mean, that right there looks okay. I'm sure I'll get responses from girls saying it looks terrible. Of course, she doesn't have any skin color, so it looks very exaggerated. Let's just see if we can give her some skin. I guess that looks fine. I don't know. I should probably do a little more research on this. And of course, we'll add shading, so that will help. Let's just see what we can do here. that. Got a shade under your nose. And then usually right here you've got a little bit of shade. Depending on where the sun is, sometimes you can get shade right here. If the sun is over here behind her, or even over here, what it'll do is it'll make this whole side of her face shaded. That cheekbone will be shaded. Defined cheekbones are definitely a feminine feature. And another thing about Flash, if you're new to it, is this right here. Basically what it does is, so say you have a space that you want to fill. So this space is completely closed off. There's no gaps. And if I want to fill it, so this here says no gaps. So that works fine. Now if there's a tiny little gap, I guess it's not so tiny. Okay, hang on. There we go. Tiny little gap right there. And I want to see it's not completely closed off, so I can't fill it. So what this does here, so that's even too big for a small gap. Let's try medium gap. See, that works. If it's a larger gap, there you go. It comes in handy. Sometimes it's a pain because if you can't find the gap, then you gotta go to close small gaps, and then there'll be little white spots everywhere that you gotta fill in. So just watch out for that. And the more I look at this, the more I don't like how it looks. Let's just try a natural tone. Yeah, I guess that looks fine. She's kind of a Russian looking woman, almost. Look at her eyes. Make them green. Eyes are actually very fun to draw because you can really make some cool colors for them. And of course, our eyes are covered in moisture, so they'll have a reflection. It'll probably be on this side if the sun's coming from over here. Lighting is very important to remember. If you can't keep consistent lighting, it may look strange. She also has hair, so this will probably be shaded up here. Give her dark hair. And there you go. Her forehead's a little high. Oh. This is actually very sloppy. I wouldn't recommend doing this. I'd probably just recommend redrawing it, but sometimes you get a little lazy, which I don't recommend. Don't be like me in that sense. Okay, so here's an example. So, you know, I use the small gaps because it wouldn't fill all by itself, so these little things will pop up. So just look out for those because they're a pain. Okay, so we've got kind of the basics down for drawing faces. And these are very generic, typical male-female faces. Let's go ahead and try something a little more exaggerated. So we'll start a new scene, get out a light color, go with yellow. Okay, so I don't know, let's just try drawing, see where we go. We'll do another man. Also go to paint normal now if you're still in paint fills. So this face is a little shorter and the jaws are very exaggerated, so this will be a man, of course. And really, once you get it down, you can draw these faces pretty fast. And of course, that's very good for animating because you want to be able to get these things whipped out fast. so you can come up with your products. I'll give him some nostrils, mouth, chin. I like to kind of show where it will be shaded. You know, so this face is completely different from the other guy's face. It's I don't know if it'd be more masculine. It's a little more I guess thick. You know, he's kind of short and stocky. But then of course we could do something completely opposite. We could have a tall, thin face. Maybe even a little too tall. And one way to kind of figure out what kind of style you want is go research other animations, you know. Watch Disney movies, watch DreamWorks, whatever you can. And we're talking 2D animation. Don't go and watch 3D stuff. I mean, you can if you want, but it doesn't really help you discover drawing styles. But really just go look up people like Adam Phillips or Don Bluth, or, you know, there's all sorts of inspirations out there that can help you define your style. Not saying go out there and plagiarize, but definitely use them as inspiration, because there's some very talented people out there that can help you decide what kind of animator you want to be, or artist. So you can see this face is very long. Tall face would probably mean a skinnier neck. And I'm actually in the pretty bad habit of making all my eyes look the same. Most of my eyes usually look something like this. I have the eyebrow right there. But really, they can come in all sorts of sizes. Women's eyes, I usually do like that. Almost like, kind of like a cat, I guess. And we'll give them nice eyelashes. But really, you can do anything. You can make them boxy, or you can even just do circles. Give them eyebrows. Let's see. I mean, you can even just do dots if you want, if you're going for that kind of style. In fact, one of my favorite eye styles, I don't usually use it, but from the old Superman cartoons, Superman's eye is just, it's literally just a line across his face. There's no whites, it's just like part of the skin. It's just a little dot in the middle. And I actually really like it. I don't know if it's because it's Superman or what, but I like it. So don't be like me and get caught in habit with features of the face. You know, I'll always draw my eyes like this just out of habit because it's easy and it looks good. But don't be afraid to, you know, break those habits, because otherwise your characters all start looking the same, and it really kind of takes away from the I don't know, the originality of your pieces. Just keep it different, keep your characters looking unique. Let's try some more faces. One thing you want to remember with heads, again, we go back to the circle. You know, always start with a circle, and typically if the head's facing forward, it'll look something like that. But the head is not always facing forward. Sometimes it'll be to the side. You know, we'll give him a nose. But you know, sometimes it's looking up or down. And that's where it's really important to know the jawline. So it's, right now it just kind of looks like a, almost like a headstone, but so if the eyes are right here, and nose is right there, mouth is right there, here the eyes would be up here. nose would be pointed up, so you'd be able to see up the nostrils, and mouth would be right here. You know, if he's got hair, his hair is going to be sticking out here. And his ears would be down here. And shading helps too, you know, so you can see kind of where his head is. But you can tell that he's looking up. Now if he's looking down, then the chin's going to be kind of jutting out a little more. And his jaw will be pulled back. So here's his eyes. His eyebrows will probably overlap his eyes. His nose will be pointing out. And the mouth could be anywhere around here. It could be underneath the nose or just beneath it. But it's not going to be down here on the bottom of his chin, you know what I mean? And, you know, like here would be his hairline. It's just important to remember that heads don't always look like this. They're going to be turned, facing up. Keep that in mind, because, you know, if I just draw a normal head like that and I want him looking up, you know, I'm not going to put his eyes up here and his nose right there in his mouth, because that looks absolutely ridiculous. Keep that in mind. Heads change when they move. They're a concrete object, and when they turn, they completely change shape. You know, one thing I like to do is I'll add a little circle to indicate kind of the back of the skull, just for the rough drawings, not in the final product, but it helps just to give it a more 3D image. So you can tell that that is the back of someone's head. Ears will be right there. You can put a little crease on the neck. That's where the skull would meet the neck muscles. You know, if you want, put circles on all of them. Just indicate the back of the skull. And you can see here, give him an eye line, eyes, nose, mouth. You can see this is the back of his skull. Also, shading lines help. It's pretty simple. Another way to learn kind of the bone structure of the face is really that simple. It's the bone structure. You draw a skull. Start with a circle again. And I don't know if this helps. It helps me sometimes just to figure out kind of how the skin molds around the skull. But I will just, you know, I'll draw a skull. Got the cheekbones here. This will be the nose. Eyes right here. So this is the upper half. And I will not be surprised if this is not anatomically correct, but you can tell it's a skull, right? Chin's right there. And you can add little teeth if you want. You know, there's the eye line. And then here would be the back of the skull. If you want, you can add little vertebrae down here. And then to really help you understand how the face molds to it, we'll go ahead and make this a little lighter. Let's try something different. We'll just do gray. A little bit lighter. Okay. So if you really want to understand how it fits onto a face, best thing you can do is draw the face on top of it. So this isn't where the nostrils would be, that's just the bone, the rest is cartilage. So the nose would come down here, but it's built off of that right there. Mouth would be right over the teeth. Give it lips, eyebrows, cheekbones. There's the chin, ears, skin goes right along the skull. The vertebrae don't really help with the neck, but I guess they kind of give you a little guideline. I mean, really, it's a human face right there. All based off of a drawing of a skull, you know. I mean, really, it's that simple. Just understand the way the human face works. Understand the muscles, the skull, just the basic structure, and you will do fine. We'll go with a darker color just so you guys can see a little better. Okay. So let's just try a different style here. We'll try different eyes and stuff. I don't usually do rounded faces, so if this turns out not looking very good, just bear with me. We'll give them small little eyebrows. And you can see these eyes are much more circular and almost boxy, but they're rounded, so it's different. Give a little nose. And you know, this is a lot different from the other faces, so like I said, you know, do this. You want to make them look different, because if your characters all look the same, it can become confusing for viewers. You don't want people to get your characters confused, because that can really distract from the story or from the art piece. So this is just kind of an odd little character. Give him hair. I also have a habit of making all my hair look the same, which I need to stop doing. All my hair ends up looking like this. We need to cut that out. Let's try something else. Also for hair, if any of you know what a widow's peak is, it's an important thing to recognize. Some people have it, some people don't. Sometimes it'll just be rounded up there like that. But it also helps to know kind of where the center of the hair is. So we'll keep it. Give this guy some wavy hair. You know, he's got that kind of small little mouth, almost puckered. You know, just kind of a silly little character. It's really that simple. Just don't get caught in habit. Keep everything different. You know, unless of course you're drawing the same character over and over again. Keep it the same then. Just be smart. Let's try this again. We'll try girl. So girls are definitely characters that I need to practice drawing more. I'm definitely better at drawing guys, so I apologize to the female population that wants to draw girls. Keep those eyebrows nice and thin and well groomed. Also, another thing for girls is it's good to give them nice big eyes, but not too big, because then it starts to look a little weird. At least I think so. And you want as few lines as you can if you want them to look very feminine. Nice thin jaw lines. She's kind of looking up. You also want to make sure the head is shaped right. You don't want a nice flat head, you know. Give her a hairline. Give her some ears. Defined lips are definitely a good indicator of a woman. Give her some cheekbones. Not always necessary, but it helps. And then the hair. Female's hair can be very difficult. Just gotta make sure it follows the flow of the ears and the head. Just make it, you'll know when it looks right. Just practice. Look at other pictures of cartoon girls, and it eventually becomes pretty easy. Also for guys, so let's go back to this guy. Typically in guys, they'll have a thick neck, but also it's usually important to remember that they do have an Adam's apple, because that's what gives them their deep voices. It'll be kind of jutting out. Girls, not necessary. Unless, no, it's not necessary. Don't give your girls big Adam's apples. It's weird. Okay. So that looks pretty good. Again, two very different characters. We've got pretty realistic female over here and kind of a cartoony chubby guy over here. Keep it different. You want to keep the style consistent, but the character's different. Okay. So really, I mean, there's not a whole lot more else to teach. This is just covering the basics, of course. I'll probably do other tutorials, you know, teaching more about eyes and noses and mouths and hair. And eventually we'll do one about full human figures, which are a lot of fun. I love doing the human body. It's my favorite thing to draw. But just keep practicing. That's all I can tell you. I can't stress that enough. Keep practicing. That's all I do. I just never stop drawing. Give her nice thin eyebrows. For girls, if you want, all you need is the nostrils, and you can cover the rest with shading. You don't need these lines here. You can have them, but they're not necessary. For the lips, if you want, you can add the red lipstick here, or if you want it to look like dark lipstick, just go ahead and use the black. Or if the shading is a little more dramatic, just go right ahead. And as you can see, eyes are on the line, nose is right on the bottom of that circle, mouth is just below the nose. You can also see it matches up with this jawline. Eyes are about 2/3 down from the top of the head. Of course, the hair makes the head look a little bigger, which is okay. The hair looks, you know, realistic enough. It's not, you know, jutting out here. It can if you want. I personally don't prefer that way. I mean, but really, get rid of that hair and just, I mean, that's a pretty feminine face without hair or anything to add on to it. that's really it, guys. I mean, if I missed anything, be sure to let me know in the comments. Be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this. There will be more tutorials coming out if you enjoyed learning. Next one, I'm not sure what we'll do for the next one, but we'll probably go more into the details of the face. We'll learn more about coloring and shading, how to do hair, all sorts of stuff. So if you like this tutorial and you learned a lot, be sure to subscribe. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Appreciate all the support from everyone, and we'll see you next time.